hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of 7 Days to Sunday, presented on FanDuel by FanDuel, of course, on the Overreaction Buffalo Network, Sirius XM NFL Radio, and Western New York's Zig Fracassi here, as always, and pleased to be joined, as always, by Tulsa Football Hall of Famer, former Bills standout, and champion one time in his imagination of the Underwear Olympics. My guy, Mr. Jerry Ostroski. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Zig, and you said it correctly. I mean, I guess there is a little bit of warrant to what they do as far as the Underwear Olympics go. But honestly, I mean, this is a situation where don't tell me who had a good time. Don't tell me who had great numbers. Tell me the two guys that didn't. And while we all sort through things like arm length and hand size, I think after a week in Indianapolis, we've kind of figured out maybe who's validated their game film and who hasn't,
Oh, I agree. And a lot of people make big deal out of it. Like maybe Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman Trophy winner and national champion quarterback at Indiana, not throwing, but he's going to do that at Indiana's Pro Day with his guys. We had Western New York's Tom Telesco on, who, of course, is former Raiders and Chargers GM. He's one of our guys here on Sirius XM NFL Radio. And I had asked him about that, Jerry. I says, there's some teams that make a big deal about a guy, not throwing or not, doing routes or whatever at the combine. Some say it's a big deal. For him, it never was. So I guess, whatever floats your boat, so to speak.
Well, the thing about Mendoza that's kind of wild, and he came out and said that he didn't throw because he wanted to throw to his guys at Indiana and help his guys out, right? Which I get, but if there ever was a guy that had a home field advantage for the combine, it would be Fernando Mendoza, right?
Sure.
I mean, Bloomington's just down the road, so but no, he chose not to throw, and I don't blame him. I mean, we all know he's going number one to the Raiders unless something just absolutely crazy happens. So why risk it? Whatever, go ahead, have your pro day at Indiana, get your guys out there and all of that. So, but there were a lot of players, though, Zig, I thought did a good job. Guys that helped, raise their draft stock. Some guys that probably fell a little bit. And I think in a few instances, maybe will fall a little bit. And some teams drafting later in the first, maybe even in the second, will get some really good football players because, these guys dropping because people get hung up on, little things that they probably shouldn't.
And I think one guy you're probably going to refer to here, Jerry, was the young man out of Arkansas, Mike Washington Jr. Here he is at 6'1" and 223, 39-inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump. Then he has a 4.33 in the 40. Now, you know as well as I do, maybe Love and Price, that dynamic backfield out of Notre Dame, might be the top two backs in this draft.
Right.
Maybe Mike Washington Jr. added a little bit of intrigue to his game and to the draft overall.
I think so. I really do. He had a heck of a combine. He's a kid that we see a lot down here in this part of the country. Obviously, Fayetteville's an hour and 15 minutes away. Follow a lot of Arkansas, but like you said, I mean, it's not just the speed; it's the explosiveness. The 10.8 broad and the 39-inch vertical just really prove that. And I think that's an area that, to me anyway, those are like my most important numbers that I go to. When I see these guys and they do the individual drills, I want to see what the broad jump is. I want to see what the vertical is because it shows that explosiveness, that power, that ability to put your foot in the ground, and take it to the house. And I think that Mike Washington Jr. did a wonderful job there. And I think really did – maybe in some cases, maybe made a case for him to be number two as far as the running back spots go. Now, I've seen mocks out there where both guys obviously Love and then his teammate, both guys that are probably, some people have them going both in the first round. But I think Mike Washington did a really good job of solidifying himself as it's definitely in that top 3 or 5, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to go back, and maybe we discussed this. I believe we did maybe last week or whatever, but reiterate, Jerry, in case people didn't catch, in terms of when you've got a situation like this,
right.
Like even back to last year when you had, Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson come out of Ohio State. Obviously, both dynamic backs in their own right. When you've got a Love and a Price, when you're a player evaluator or a team looking, because it seemed like Love was more the home run hitter, whereas Price was maybe more the grind type back. I guess you got to look at, how they balanced each other out, but also for your own pro team, what your needs might be.
Exactly. I think you look at both of them, and you said you laid it out there perfectly. I mean, when you look at Love, he's a guy that is dynamic. I mean, as dynamic as we've seen with the football at that spot recently. I mean, kind of maybe goes back to a Saquon Barkley type explosion. As far as how he can put his foot in the ground and go. Jadarian Price, you're right, is more of a grinder. 5'11", 203. Did a really good job at the combine. He had a 4.49, so maybe not the blazer or top end speed that Love has, but still 35 inches in the vertical jump, which I love.
Yes.
10.4 in the broad, which I love. And then he goes in and he hammers out 21 in the bench press, which to me was interesting because he didn't do 3-cone and he didn't do the 20-yard shuttle, but he did bench, which I was surprised at. Usually when you don't do the 3-cone and the 20, you probably don't bench either, but he did, and he did a great job and shows that strength and size. So you're right. I mean, there's some people have him sneaking into the bottom of the first round. Maybe, I think Charlie Davis, had him going 32nd overall to Seattle, especially with, Kenneth Walker maybe being a free agent. You don't know what's going on with Charbonneau, so maybe a Price fits in there. So there's definitely people talking about him being a first-round type guy. But you're right. I mean, it's just funny to me that we're sitting here talking about backs right off the bat, and it's not because I devalue them. I think it's because everybody else has for so long, and now all of a sudden they're back, right? Everybody wants a running back, and fortunately the Bills already have theirs. They don't need to go ahead and get one early, but it is good to see that the running backs are being emphasized once again.
7 days to Sunday continues, presented by FanDuel. Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. I bet Fina would probably love this one. The kid out of Arizona, Stukes, the safety, 6-year senior, had a 4.33 in the 40, 38-inch vertical leap. And here's a guy coming off a torn ACL back in 2024. Maybe a day two type of guy, but definitely someone that I thought raised his stock a bit.
Definitely. I think you're coming 1 year off of that injury, right? So there's still, you're looking at it and you don't expect to be all the way back the year after. And he puts up numbers like this the year after. So yeah, I mean, a day two guy, a guy that, was probably recruited by your guy, Fish, who's now at Washington, when he was down in when he was down in Arizona. So yeah, I mean, a guy to look at, but again, that DB group was interesting. Nobody ran over a 4.5. Everybody was under sub 4.5 for the, I think, third year in a row. Now, obviously, everybody didn't run, but it's still pretty impressive that group continues to shine. And there are some very, very good safeties. And I don't know if you saw the numbers put up by Lorenzo Styles Jr., but I mean, ridiculous numbers. We talk about Caleb Downs and what he's done. And it's funny, we'll talk about him in a second. I mean, he got flagged for injury. So obviously there's something there, but Lorenzo's brother, we all saw Sonny and what he did. And then, Lorenzo Styles Jr. goes out and does what he does. And,
did you play against Senior?
I think so.
You might have. Yeah.
I didn't
put player in his day.
Yeah. I didn't put two and two together, Zig. And then I was thinking about it the other day. I'm pretty sure we did. So, yeah, I mean, obviously great genetics in that family. Both those guys are going to get picked high, and they did a really good job at the combine as well.
Well, you mentioned Jed Fish, who not only has done a terrific job at Arizona, he's now at Washington, and he's been a longtime pro assistant too. So had some really interesting stories with Matt Sims and myself this weekend on NFL radio, and talked about his two corners, Tacario Davis. And every time I see this guy's name, Jerry, I have to pray Ephesians price sock. So let's put some divine intervention in Ephesians. But I'll tell you what, there was some divine intervention.
That's outstanding. Please go.
Okay, I was going to say I didn't want to interrupt the laugh train here, but
No, that's outstanding.
it
That's
really.
outstanding.
Hey, every once in a while, I come up with a 2-0 fastball and just hit the crap out of it. Anyway, there must have been some divine intervention because these guys ran sub 4.5s in the 40s, and you know how good corners need to be. Would either of these guys possibly be on the Bills' radar?
Possibly. I think, if you look at them, kind of their rankings are probably day 2, later day 2, maybe early day 3 type
Yeah.
picks, right? So, yeah, most definitely they're guys that fit into that area. I mean, both of them are big, right? Ephesians at 6'4", 195. That's amazing. Divine.
You're still trying to get over this.
I'm still trying to get over it. That's so good. Tacario Davis also 6'4", 200 pounds. So big physical quarterbacks, guys that'll go up, tackle, those types of things. So yeah, where I have him sitting at, where you see him sitting at as far as rankings go, probably like I said, a late day 2, early day 3. So they could be there for the Bills.
Speaking of divine intervention, could there have been any other thing created better than the chicken wing out of Buffalo, New York, Jerry?
As a matter of fact, I think the chicken wing is in the book of Ephesians.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's in chapter 4, by the way.
Okay.
But anyway, the Anchor Bar, proud sponsor of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we're proud to have them on. Obviously, the Anchor Bar, the home of the original Buffalo wings, started by Frank and Teresa Bellissimo, and jumbo wings, always fresh, never frozen. Get them in a variety of sauces and dry rubs. They have other things on the menu as well, like beef on weck, pizza, all those Buffalo specialties you learn to love. And they've got other stuff as well if you're into something maybe a little bit more healthy. They've got salads and wraps and things too. But the awesome thing about the Anchor Bar is they're now in 17 different cities across the United States of America. And you can go wherever you're traveling, take a look at the website, see if they're available. You got Raleigh, North Carolina. You got Frisco, Texas, which is outside of Dallas. You've got, obviously, the home of John Fina, Tucson, Arizona. So they've got Anchor Bars across the country as well if you can't get to the original in the city of Buffalo. But again, the Anchor Bar, proud sponsor of the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we appreciate them very, very much for joining us and partnering with us for this season.
Beautifully said, Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi, as we continue with 7 Days to Sunday, presented by FanDuel. And another intriguing name, and again, I'm not sure Bill's looking for quarterback, but
Right.
This young man, quite athletic at 6'6", 227, Talon Green, the quarterback from Arkansas. Right. And if you listen to these, mock drafts and these guys who present, guys like Dan Jeremiah, I have a ton of respect for. Dan, of course, the Chargers radio analyst and former NFL scout. I know my guy Charles Davis is pretty high on him. And apparently emphatically shut down Talon Green moving to any other position. Here he is, had a terrific broad jump, vertical leap, 4.36 40. This guy was already sort of sneaking up on some people. Maybe now he even made himself even more known after the combine.
Been watching Talon Green for a long, long time. Obviously, like I said, we're close to Arkansas here in Tulsa and get to see those games. And you start getting a trend, right? I mean, what happens when you have guys like Mike Washington and Talon Green and others from Arkansas at the combine, and you don't win a lot of games, usually what happens is you have a coaching change. And obviously, they had a coaching change in Arkansas this year. Sam Pittman moves on, and they bring in Silverfield from Memphis. But again, Green is just an absolute physical specimen. 6'6", 227 pounds, ran a 4.36, vertical 43.5, 11.2 in the broad jump. These are all numbers that we haven't seen since like 2003 at the combine, and just amazing athleticism out of this guy. But
he says,
there's also a part of the combine that a lot of people don't talk about very much because it's not as sexy, and that's the on-the-field drills. And, one thing that Talon Green has issues with is being consistent throwing the football. He's not a pure passer. He is a thrower. He's not a passer. And, I think that this is going to be something that whoever does take him has an established quarterback. Maybe they've got a later round pick that they can mess around with, and they bring him in, and he sits as a number 3, and they've got a quarterback coach that just pours into him and works with him. Because right now he doesn't have the skills throwing the ball to be a consistent quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. He's got everything else, but he's got to learn to throw the ball better. So I think this is a deal where you're not going to pick him to be a starter. You're going to pick him to sit on the bench and learn from vets, learn from the quarterback coach, and see what happens from there. So we'll see how it goes. He's an intriguing story, all the size and athleticism you could ever want, but he is a little bit rough throwing it. So he's going to have to learn those things to be a consistent passer in the NFL.
Anyone else grab your eye? I thought Finneman, the Oregon safety, looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I love the way that he handled his drills. And by the way, Casey Concepcion, I believe, his dad's from Rochester, if I read right.
I saw that. Yes, I saw that.
And by the way, props to that young man for coming forward, Jerry, on admitting he's got a stuttering problem and that he's willing to work, not only to help get himself better, but to work better with others. I'll tell you what, I mean, you talk about a guy who was a standout at NC State, then he went to Texas A&M. My gosh, you want a good receiver, maybe some good PR? Bills might want to take a look at him.
No, I think you're 100% correct. He's one of the guys that I think right now, Concepcion's one of the guys that's a favorite. There's a lot of people mocking him to the Buffalo Bills. He's a guy that's kind of one of the favorites to get that first round pick from Brandon Beane. Obviously, Bills picking 26th. And I just think there's enough guys in this draft that can fall that could make it really interesting for Brandon Beane, whether he uses a little bit of capital to bump up a few spots to get a guy that maybe he's fallen or whatever. But yeah, Concepcion's a guy that I think is a really good option at receiver there. Another kid that I thought did well at the combine is Jacoby Lane from USC.
Yes.
6'4", 200 pounds. I like size. I like that size. He had a 4.47 in the 40. I know it's not a blazer, but he's got good athleticism. He can get open and separate, not just with speed. 10.9 in the broad, 40-yard vertical jump. So really good receiver there. I think he's a guy that I like. Also Zachariah Branch from Georgia looked pretty good as far as receivers go. So there's going to be some options. I think really the biggest thing is for me, Zig, and it's becoming evident that we're going to lose at least one of those interior offensive linemen, right?
I agree. Yeah.
Maybe we'll lose both. And then on top of that, you've got to figure out if you can re-sign early, Osiris Torrance on the other side, because he's getting ready to come up on his 5th year.
Right.
And if you don't get him re-signed this year, the money that he's going to get next year is going to be even more than David Edwards is probably getting. So with that being said, do you make sure that you use some draft capital? And I'm not saying a ton of it, but I want at least one higher. When I say higher, I mean, if they took one in second, I wouldn't be upset. If Vega from Penn State fell to 26 in the first round and they took him, I wouldn't be upset, right? I know we got other needs in other spots, but they got to make sure this O-line stays together. And
I love the kid from Utah, by the way, Fano.
Yeah, Fano. Now Fano's gotten, he's part of the Scarlet Letter crew, Zig. Now you gotta watch out.
The Scarlet Letter crew.
Yeah, the Scarlet Letter. He's got the scarlet the red SA on his jersey for short arms. He got the short arm tag when he was there, and now all of a sudden he's gone from some having him as the number 1 tackle prospect to now they're talking about, are they going to have to move him in the guard because his arms are short? Whatever, man. Whatever. Do what you need to do. If I just get irritated by some of this talk and some of this stuff with the arm lengths and the hand size, because supposedly his hands aren't big either. But anyway, very good player, and he could play inside and out. I know Caden Proctor did some good things. I would like, there's a couple of guys that I really like. I love Vega, like I said, from Penn State, but the kid that I think might be there is this kid. His name is Bashanti from Texas A&M.
Yeah,
and I really like him. I think he's a guy that is It's Basantis is his name, Chase Basantis from Texas A&M.
Yep.
He's a brawler. He's a former tackle, 6'5", 315, had really good numbers at the combine, ran a 5.02, vertical 32, which is good. I'm cool with anything over 30 for a 300-plus pound offensive lineman. Good good broad jump, 3-cone, all that, bench press. So I think he's a guy that could really help solidify some things for the Bills if he was there. But, this is going to be one of those deals where Bean's going to have to figure out, what's important and what's not. Center-wise, my favorite center, Zig, is a guy named Logan Jones.
Okay.
There's another player named Jake Slaughter at Florida that I like. He's kind of a tall, longer guy like McGovern is right now. Maybe not quite as bulky, but a lot like McGovern. But this thing about Logan Jones, man, if you put he plays for Iowa, right?
Yep.
Wears that black and gold jersey. If you put a bar down the middle of his face mask and you gave him the old, cage face mask like the old days. I mean, this is a Mike Webster kind of guy. I mean, I love this dude. Athletic.
And coached by Kirk Ferentz, too,
Yes.
who's a master of O-lineman,
Coached by Ferentz, athlete, 4'9" in the 40, 299 pounds, finishes plays, strong, technique sound, savvy, all those things you get with Iowa guys. I love him. So I don't know when he'll be there. I don't know if he'll be off the board or not, third, fourth round. But if he's there and we don't have the opportunity, we don't re-sign McGovern. I know we got Van Pran Granger on the bench, but he's a guy that I'd look at. I mean, competition's always good. So those are some of the O-linemen that I really like in this draft.
Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi, as we continue with 7 days to Sunday, presented by FanDuel here on the Overreaction Buffalo Network. Let's circle back to Downs, the outstanding safety from Ohio State. And you made reference to this a little bit earlier, Jerry, about he was essentially red flagged for I believe it was a meniscus injury. This was according to a couple of reports that circulated. Although reading and observing some things at this point, it doesn't seem like, teams are that scared off by this, because this wouldn't be the first or the last time this ever happens. Although the caveat was apparently this thing could get worse as his career goes on. Yeah, obviously you've got not you yourself, but you as a team have access to the medicals and everything like that. And I'm sure he'll be rechecked as they go on down the line. This guy is viewed as a top 5 pick. How do you proceed with that if you were a top 5 team? Would you still take him, for example?
Zig, when you walk on the field, if you're 100% healthy, your health is declining the minute you walk on the field in the NFL.
Almost like a car when you drive it out of the showroom, right?
Yeah, I mean, this kid has done what he's done. His health is amazing. We've seen stories like this. Bills fans themselves know probably one of the greatest stories about a guy that had no ACL, and that being Thurman Thomas, and now he's got a busting
cannon. Turned out okay, yeah.
Yeah, he turned out quite fine, right? Played, 13 years? I think he did okay. You had Johnson last year from Michigan, who then
Cardinals kid.
Now he's a Cardinals kid and played well. So if you want to diminish Downs, hopefully he drops to 26. I hope nobody wants.
There you go.
And he drops to 26 because it's not just a meniscus. They're also saying he's got what they would call a degenerative ACL situation.
That's right.
What that means, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there'll be some teams, obviously, because you have to go with what your medical staff says.
Wow.
Right. So if your medical staff comes in and they fail them and you pick them anyway, and then something does happen, you're going to be unemployed because the owner is going to be not happy with you.
Because you should have listened.
Right. So you should have listened. But still, I mean, if you look at the board and where it all is going to fall, he probably still the first safety off the board, maybe drops to somewhere in the 10 range, something like that. I think some of the guys that are going to be interesting in this draft as far as question marks go, obviously Carnell Tate, the receiver from Iowa State, didn't maybe run a blazing time. He was a 4.53 guy. Some people said they watched him on film, said his technique wasn't that great, and that's why he ran a little bit slower. That he's probably actually a 4.4 something guy. We'll see how that goes. Some of the other guys that maybe Reuben Baines, a guy that got caught up in the length argument, short arms, maybe not super tall, 6'2", 6'3". You know, you can kind of look at Bain as maybe a tweener, Zig. He's really not big enough to be a 3 technique and maybe doesn't have the length to be an end. I'll just go by with what I watched during the college football playoff. He's a pretty good football player.
Yeah, he is.
So
yeah.
I think he'll be fine. So yeah, I mean, I don't see too many others. McNeil Warren, the safety from Toledo, his combine wasn't great. Maybe that affects him. And then, of course, you had the Mekhi Lemon situation where he had such a weird interview process. It was interesting. So
what about your guy from Oklahoma there, R. Mason Thomas? I heard some sort of conflicting things about him.
If you're picking R. Mason Thomas, in my estimation, strictly off of a combine, you are missing the best thing that is R. Mason Thomas. I think R. Mason Thomas is a guy that is just he is a dog when he plays.
Okay.
He's got production for days, and you know what? They're gonna put a check next to him because again, he's in the short length club, right? He's in the short arm club, and then also he ran. I'm trying to think what he ran. I think he ran in the 4.5s, and
he had a 4.67. I think
was it a 4.67?
Yeah.
So he ran a 4.67, but the problem was when you look at it, you know, he only weighed 241 pounds.
Right.
So he did run a 4.67. He ran 241 pounds, and they're comparing him to like the David Baileys of the world, you know, or Lawrence, where those guys are edge rushers who are probably 10 plus pounds heavier than him and ran about 1 second less, right? Bailey ran a 4.51. Lawrence ran a 4.52. So, you know what? I'm all about it, man. This is another one. Put him next to Downs. If he drops to 26, that would be good for the Buffalo Bills. So like I'm saying, there's going to be options for the Bills, but I watched a lot of R. Mason Thomas. I watched him play because, you know, down here it's Sooners all the time.
Right.
And I'm impressed with him. I think he's a very good football player.
Absolutely. And I know, you know, apparently, whether fair or not, he's been likened to another standout of recent vintage who's done pretty good in Denver by the name of Nick Bonito.
Right. Same team, same position. I think the thing is, Zig, with these guys now, these defensive ends, we talk about these historic numbers. Everybody wants to bring up all these guys with short arms and everything. This is the Micah Parsons effect.
Yes.
All right. This is the Micah Parsons effect. You can see, like, we've got guys now, and I think it's Styles actually, from Ohio State that are telling everybody, I'm not just an inside linebacker. I can rush the passer too. Everybody, these linebackers all want to become rush ends, and it's the Micah Parsons effect. So you're moving these guys over there, and you're getting this group of athletes that aren't like any other athlete that's played the position before. You know what I mean? It's they're large linebackers as who's playing rush end now. So of course they're going to have shorter arms. They're not going to be as heavy. They're not going to be as long because they're not, you know, Calais Campbell or Neil Smith or Bruce Smith or, you know what I'm saying? So I think you need to take into consideration who you have playing out there because you've got to – football's evolving to where these positions, they're looking much more athletic than just big size. They want athletes everywhere, and it's changing some of these measurables.
7 days to Sunday continues, presented by FanDuel. Jerry Ostroski, Zig Fracassi. I saw on Tuesday, Jerry, some other sort of notable things around the NFL. Drew Dahlman, who had been a very good center with Atlanta, signed a big deal with Chicago. He's going to retire at age 27. Kyler Murray publicly said goodbye to his fans with the Cardinals. He's moving on. The Jets put the franchise tag on Breece Hall. I think the Colts put transition tag on Daniel Jones, which that could be something here. So anything grab your eye from what happened on Tuesday?
Yeah, transition tag will save, I believe it was Zig, I
About
want to
6
say
million, I think.
$6 to $7 million for the Colts. Now, if someone else comes along and signs him for more than that, the Colts obviously have the right of first refusal. And if they don't agree to match the contract, then I think they get draft compensation for him moving on. So it's actually the same. I was a transition tag my free agent year in Buffalo as well. So I kind of am a little bit familiar about it. As far as some of the other stuff, I wasn't surprised at Breece Hall. Yeah, I was a little bit surprised, Zig. I don't know if you saw this, but the Bengals are not going to franchise tag Hendrickson.
Yeah.
So he will be hitting the open market, which is interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Is he too rich for the Bills, or would he even fit?
I mean, you're looking at
for them. Yeah,
you're looking at 30 million plus probably is what he's going to get. I think if you look at Max Crosby, Crosby's over 34 million. I don't know if Hendrickson will get 34 million, but I think he'll get 30.
He'll get close.
He'll get 30. So we'll see how that goes. Kyler, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I don't know. Does he have to go be a backup for a while?
That's a really good question. Although he might have a shot to start with the Vikings.
You got the Vikings. I think we still have to see what happens. Yeah, well, we have to see. Yeah, the Jets is another. You got to see what happens with Pittsburgh. The one thing about Kyler, though, and I don't know, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole him or anything, but I'm not sure how strong. If you got a young rebuild going on, what type of strong leadership does he bring to the table?
Great point.
You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen this, and that was kind of one of the complaints in Arizona, was it not? They tried to put the whole film study clause in his contract.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And when that gets out, that makes not only to me the player look like, what are you doing? But to the team too. And by the way, again, with Arizona, they never should have gave him that contract because they didn't need to at that point.
No. But Bidwell hasn't done a lot of sound things in his tenure as owner of the Arizona Cardinals. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, Zig. I know that his guy, his dude, is back in LA, I believe, which is my man from the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who's bounced around. He's the OC there now. He was
Kingsbury.
So Kingsbury's in LA. Maybe they bring him to LA knowing that Stafford has a year left. Maybe let him back up and then try to take over. We'll see, but that'll be interesting. The other one's Tua. Tua's going to get released.
Yeah.
Where does Tua end up?
It's a good one. Maybe Arizona. Who knows?
Good. I've heard some people talk about Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, so maybe he ends up in Atlanta, but yeah, it'll be an interesting free agency. I'm really curious as we crank up this thing. We get closer to legalized tampering March 9th.
Yeah.
And then obviously the season begins March 11th. Just what teams are going to do. And then again, the Bills, they've got a lot of question marks as far as the cap. They still got a bunch of moves they can make. Josh Allen, Deion Dawkins, Ed Oliver, is he going to be a contract extension?
Right.
Which he kind of falls in line for that. Dawson Knox, can he become an extension at a much lower rate? I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, and so forth. So they're pretty close to being where they need to be with the Spencer Brown redo, but they do have some other things. And we talked about Osiris Torrance earlier. He's going to have that escalator added to his contract this year, which is a kind of a premium play, they call it. I can't remember the exact name of it, Zig, to be honest with you. It's called the proven performance escalator.
Okay.
So due to the number of snaps and everything he's taken, he'll get a bump in his contract automatically because of this proven performance escalator, which will take his cap hit from $1,705,000 up to over $4 million.
Okay.
So if you did redo his contract, you'd have an opportunity to save a little bit there. Also, Dorian Williams, who's also up for a redo, also has the escalator clause with the amount that he's played, and his contract will be bumping up to just shy of $4 million. He'll also be up for a contract redo as well. So this isn't a cut and dry off season for the Bills. But I think this, and I don't know how you think, and kind of wanted your opinion. We all know, and every time there's change, right? Usually something nice and shiny shows up.
Yeah.
I would think Brandon Beane's probably going to do something in free agency this offseason to make a splash to get this Joe Brady era kicked off with a hot start.
Yeah, and the one name that seems to be gaining some steam is Mike Evans, a guy that, consistent 1,000-yard producer. And, obviously he's been a stalwart in Tampa Bay, but I think that's starting to level off as a franchise. Does he want to come to the cold weather and play there, or does he want one more shot at the Super Bowl? That's kind of the name that I keep hearing.
Well, last year his value was over $20 million. He was like 20,500,000. Market value right now is looking at a little bit over 13.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, man.
Yeah.
I would have to think as a receiver, the lure of playing with Josh Allen would be pretty strong.
I'd take a flyer if he was interested, sure.
But the problem is, too, while Josh Allen's is 1A, my 1A minus or 1B is Baker Mayfield.
Right.
And he's playing for Bake now. So
yeah, that's true.
True. So there's that as well. But I just think something's going to go down. I'm not really sold on this Dobbs deal. I'm not super sold on Shaheed yet. I just think that instead of constantly going for mid-grade receivers and overpaying for mid-grade receivers, they've got to go out and try to draft them, and they got to try to find somebody that's a big name.
Well, in Dobbs's case, too, I think the one thing would be because he's already played in cold weather, you ain't got to worry about him there.
It's true.
And he's very cerebral young man. I've interviewed him a few times on NFL radio, but there's also been a little bit of a concussion history. You notice he does wear the cap there, the protective cap, and also
guardian cap.
Thank you. And also, I think there's been some other injuries too. So it'll be interesting to see. Any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
No, sir. Just looking forward to it. It's the 3rd today. So by next week, we should be in the middle of the
legal tampering
period.
baby.
We should have all of our answers of how did the Bills get under the cap. We can speculate what's going to happen in free agency. I'm sure the rumor mill is going to be heating up because, all these jabronis on Twitter, they all know what's going on, right? They got all the information. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, man, just appreciate you being on. And I gotta remember that. I gotta remember that divine intervention piece.
Yes, Ephesians.
That's it.
Ostroski.
I'm going to so steal that. That is outstanding.
Go ahead,
anyway,
Mr. Thief.
For myself, for Zig Fracassi, and for everybody else on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking the time to watch us. Review the show. Give us a like. Subscribe. All those great things. It helps us out. As always, folks, till next week, much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Feel the same.